Hello, fellas. Ruben here, better known as Big Ruben.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? My name's Jose.
We are beginning a podcast on men's mental health. Our podcast name is Men Redefining Manhood. Welcome to Men Redefining Manhood, a podcast and movement for fathers and men ready to rewrite what it means to be men. This isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's about healing, not hiding. It's about building men up, not tearing each other down. Let's redefine manhood together. Today's topic, episode, we're going to be discussing machismo, how it hurts men and families.
Absolutely. Yeah, machismo is definitely something that is, and I'm sure that, we're both aware of this, Ruben, that it's something that affects families, it affects men. At times, people probably don't even recognize that it exists. Men probably don't see it as an issue because they've grown up with it, and so it's normalized,
Yeah, I think the topic of machismo has been very normalized in our culture. I think we've talked about it, Jose, before. In my household, my father was very machista. Where he got home, he was a construction worker. He got home, and he expected his plate to be on the table, soda right next to it, and it was like nobody talked to him, leave him alone, let him do what he has to do. And growing up, I guess unconsciously, it affected a lot of the way on how I viewed my relationship and just relationships in general. And it took a lot of reprogramming and rethinking that, in today's age and time, it can't be like that. So, caused a lot of issues.
Yeah, it's something that, like you mentioned, it's a very typical example, right, of the man feeling that he's entitled to certain privileges because maybe he's the person that is the breadwinner of the home, and so with that comes certain rights and privileges. But in reality, when you think about it, right, both parties in a relationship contribute in their own specific way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether a man goes to work or vice versa, right? And you have the other partner at home taking care of everything else that needs to be done. It's a team effort.
Yeah. I had years ago, I had a very big wake up call in regards to that. I was out of work for almost a year, and I had to be kind of like the stay at home dad. And in our culture, it's kind of looked, I guess, down upon. My in-laws, my family, was kind of like, kind of thrown back. But I recall being home one day, and my wife got home, and I had did the dishes, I had cleaned, cooked, did all this stuff that is predominantly, I guess, in the eyes of somebody that's machista, that a woman should be doing. And I recall sitting back with myself and really reflecting and thinking like, dang, this is the way that I used to think. And I remember having to apologize to my wife, like, no, this is a lot of work. And I recall me and my wife recently had this discussion, and we talked about it. And she's like, yeah, think about it, nowadays. How much would it be to have a full-time babysitter?
Yeah.
How much would it be to have, a full-time person that comes and cleans your house and, does all the stuff? It's a lot of work. So just a lot of reflection on, thinking, how can we change the situation? And you're right, Jose, nowadays it's so predominant that, especially in our time, where it's needed to have two providers in the household. And if there's not a proper balance where you guys are helping each other out, it becomes difficult.
Yeah, and it can lead to resentment. It can create problems in the relationship, and so it's important, for men to be able, like you mentioned, to restructure how they think and to take on a more of a team approach, and not an approach where it's, I'm the head of the household and things go the way I say. And no, I think it's more about understanding the value and the importance of knowing that both parties contribute equally in their own way, but also each person's contribution is very important, to the family.
Yeah, yeah. Even the little things that we don't notice, got to be mindful of what we do. Yeah, I've seen machismo mess up a lot of stuff, even in my personal life. So it's rethinking that process, because when I also think of machismo, I also think of the high expectation that we put on ourselves as men, which a lot of us tend to struggle with. I did. In my younger times, I thought like, okay, I have to make this amount of money, or I have to do this. I'm the head of the household. I'm supposed to be doing this, that. And I think that goes back into the machismo role, and it puts us in a tough situation, because when we're not, I guess, living up to the part that we think we should be as this machista dominant male in the household, then it causes a lot of issues within our relationship. For me it did, because I kind of had that battle within myself, like, dang, my wife's making more money than, and it shouldn't be thought like that. It should be, no, we're a two, partner relationship. We're both contributed, and like you said, both putting our part. But that machismo affects a lot, and pretty sure there's a lot of men out there that deal with that situation, and we need to learn to overcome that situation, especially when you're in a relationship. Sometimes, you can only give 40%, and the other 60% your partner's taking over. So we have to look at that, especially as men. We have to really realize, like,
Yeah, and it's about the common goal in mind, right? It's not about me or you. It's about, we're in this together. What is the goal that we are trying to achieve together as partners and as a family, right? If there's children involved and so forth, right? And so it's important to look at it that way. And, very important what you say, what you're saying about, how there's a lot of pressure put on men to spearhead, right? And to be the person in charge, and to have everything under control, and to function under pressure, and to, smile at everyone and act like if everything's fine, when in reality, you're probably breaking down inside and not finding a way out. So what happens? A lot of men turn to substance abuse, right? They turn to abusive behaviors as a way to compensate, right? For even in situations where they feel like they are inferior to their partner, because my partner makes more, because my partner has a better job, or because of this, right? But I'm still the man of the household, and this is how I show it, and men try to show it in very dominant ways, right? When it shouldn't be like that,
Yeah. No, I agree, because, like I said, I've been in that situation myself. Full transparency. Like, I wanted to be seeing it being role modeled at home. Seeing my father being the dominant, and my mom didn't work, my dad worked construction, and it was like, I guess, that feeling of entitlement, like, like, I went to work, I've been up since 4 o'clock in the morning, you should be doing this, like the expectation of it. And I kind of felt I did that in like the early stages of my relationship, and it's like, no, we can't be like that, like, but I think that has to do with a lot of the machista ways of looking at stuff. And it's like, no, you're in a relationship with your partner. What is, like you said, what is the common goal? Where are we trying to get? Like, are we trying to retire at a young age? Are we trying to buy a bigger house? Are we trying to have this kind of a lifestyle? So it's really looking at, oneself too. But I agree, us men do have very big expectations, and I feel like social media, the world portrays us to be certain ways, and we gotta learn to get out of that because, it's affecting a lot of guys.
Yeah.
It affected me a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can only think how many other guys are out there, being affected by the situation and not speaking up about it.
Yeah, I remember my wife, telling me, earlier, like in our relationship, telling me how it was only a good idea because I brought it up when all along it is something that she had mentioned, right? So it's like, oh, so it's a good idea because now you've decided to go with it, but I've been telling you this all along, right?
Yeah, I think we
right? And it's like, yeah, like, like that is true, right? Like, why can it be okay and why can it be true and acceptable when our wives offer us these very important and great suggestions, right?
Yeah.
Why can't we just say, you know what, you're absolutely right? Like, I appreciate that. No, it almost feels like, even though it's the same thing, it has to come from us, maybe to satisfy or fulfill our ego, right? But,
yeah, and I think that has to do with a lot with it. Like, where I think guys are very, and I speak for myself. I think guys, but also myself, at times we could be kind of very egoistic, and we want, it's like, no, I'm the lead of the house. It has to be like,
yeah,
I gotta put my foot down. It's my way or the highway type situation, and it's like, no, it can't be like that because.
And we'd be the ones on the highway.
Yeah, I think we've talked about that before. Where we've been put in certain situations, and I've had the same stuff happen, where I plan something out with my wife and it doesn't work out, and then I'm sitting back and I'm like, oh dang, I remember she saying stuff like this. Let me see if I could, give the suggestion,
Right.
And then come to find out that was a suggestion she had already made, and
Yeah.
it's like. Dang, we should have just gone with route number one,
right from
instead
the
of going through all these hoops on, letting the situation happen. So, it's really kind of reflecting. Like, I don't know. I think the older I get now, the more I try to reflect on, okay, in which way is it going to affect me? In which way is the situation going to be better? And how can I involve my wife into the conversation and see what works best, It's like, I don't know, just looking at life a lot differently now.
Yeah, for sure, and I think men have to come to the realization that in today's society, truth be told, women don't need us, right? Women are successful in their own way. Women are able to make decisions for themselves, right? So, but men, on the other hand, do we need women? We probably need our partners. We need, right? Like, there's a lot of things that, quite frankly, that we can't do that our wives or partners do for us, right?
Yeah.
That are very valuable, and so the men have to restructure the way they think and get out of the mentality of, well, this is the way I am. If they want me like this, good. If not, too bad, right?
Yeah.
And I've had cousins say that, like in Spanish, right?
That was me.
Like, pues así soy yo, y si quieren, bien, y si no, pues ni modo, right? And it's like, no, like, you have to be willing to grow. You have to be willing to make some changes, right? You have to be willing to evolve as an individual so that you and your spouse can get your relationship to a place where it's beneficial for both of you.
Yeah, well, like, I think we have talked, Jose, about a similar dynamic. I have my son that's now leaving for college, and like I said, I've been in like reflective mode a lot lately, and one of the things that came up that I've been talking with my wife a lot about is working on the area of improving our relationship. So there's a guy that I watch a lot, a motivational speaker, Inky Johnson. He talks about, doing good in all aspects of life. And I think a lot of us men tend to only focus on being that provider, being that, going back to machismo, being that machista where like, I have to provide for my family and that's what is the best. You know, like, who cares about everything else? As long as I'm providing for my family, that's what the best is. But no, the guy, when listening to him, he was talking about being good in all areas of life. Being a good, provider for your family, yeah. But also being a good father, being a good husband. So one of the areas that I've been really trying to focus on is, having hard conversations with my wife. Our son is going to be leaving soon for college. Where are we finding time to work on our relationship?
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, he's going to be gone, living his own life eventually, doing what he has to do. Yeah, he has a very close relationship with us, but at the same time, what have we been doing to put effort into our relationship? So we've dedicated to do more things towards that. Like this last weekend, we took a whole day and got out of town and just focused on our relationship. And
there you go.
At times we forget to do that because we're so focused on other aspects, being just mom and dad, being workers, doing all the stuff that we do in life, and not really taking the time to focus on our relationship. But I think that that goes back into the machista lifestyle. We'll only focus on one area of life. Like you said, as long as I'm providing, that's all that matters. As long as I'm doing what I have to do, then nothing should change. No, we have to learn to adapt and do different things, because for a long time I didn't think, we're in the relationship, do stuff here and there, Mother's Day, anniversary type stuff, but not really focus on, like, where am I finding time for my partner? What am I doing, to better our relationship? But I think that's that machista style of thinking where, I got her, so
it's almost like everything is like grouped together, right? Like when you go out as a family, it's like, we went out on a date. No, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
You went out as a family, right?
Yeah.
And so when we look at like three compartments, right? When we look at the three compartments, provider, parent, and spouse, only because you went to work doesn't mean you fulfill your responsibility as a spouse or as a father, right?
Yeah.
There's still other aspects to those two departments that need to be fulfilled, right? And vice versa. Only because you go out as a family doesn't mean that you fulfill that part of the relationship with your spouse.
Yeah.
So you bring up a really valid point, that your relationship by default tends to take the back seat when you become so involved, like with children and being a provider, because those are definitely priorities, right? But your relationship is also a priority, right? But the mentality of a man, right? I'm a provider, I have to make sure that I fulfill this, and so we want to gravitate towards that, and in the process, right, the other things may start to trickle away, right?
But I think we've talked about that too, having so many hats that we wear. It's like last year, I was not only a father, a husband. I was my son's coach. I was his assistant coach for basketball. I was his trainer, going to the gym all the time with him. Like, I had all these hats that I was wearing, but I was stretching myself this far out and not really focusing on the three important factors. I'm a dad. I'm provider. I'm a husband as well. The three key factors that I needed to be focusing on, but I was stretching myself so much. And a lot of us men do that. We want to do everything for everybody and not really focus on the areas of life that we need to focus on for ourselves, and working on our relationship, working on ourselves and stuff like that. And that's where I think the issues come into play, because we're stretching so far out, and eventually we're not focusing on the important factors in our life, our mental health, our family. In reality, even though we're saying that we're focusing on our family by being a provider, are we really sitting back and asking our kids, like, hey, how are you doing, by the way?
Right.
And that's one thing that I've been trying to work and pride myself on, now finding more time. Like, hey, son, how are you anyway? And he's like, okay, like college is coming up. Like, how do you feel about it? You know, how's your relationship going because of it? Like, trying to find more ways to be more engaging as a father, not just being there, you know? But I think, you know, it took a long time to reflect and really work through the machismo. And don't get me wrong, the machismo still pops up. You know, it's very dominant. That it comes back up, but
being aware of it though,
being aware
is,
of it
is what's important, right? Like if you're aware of it, you're able to catch yourself and you're able to recognize those moments where you're responding a certain way that it's not appropriate, or that maybe you should change around so that you can respond in a way that's more appropriate, right, and respectful, you know. And you know, it's you know, machismo. Think about it. You know, if you're able to as a person change and restructure that part of your life and that part of your thinking, the stress that you do away with by not having to always dictate how things should go, rather allowing things to be okay and flow, even in moments when you don't agree with it, but your spouse's responses also, or options or opinions, are also very valid.
But knowing too that we can't, I guess, be the dictator wanting to have our thumb on top of everything, because stuff's gonna happen the way it has to happen. You know, there's a lot of stuff that I don't agree upon what my son does, but I think that he's an amazing kid still. You know, he's doing what he has to do, and I may not agree with everything, but at the end of the day, I can't call him. Like, I have to allow him to make his mistakes and do what he has to do. And I think that also gets into, you know, the machista way of wanting to control everything. And it's like, no, I got to get out of that. I can't teach him, you know, certain things that have voice and then get upset with him when he wants to voice certain opinions. So it's growing a lot. Looking at ourselves and seeing what we can change, because I don't want my son to grow up thinking like, oh no, I have to be this machista person and it's my way or the highways. No, he has to give his, you know, eventually if he does get married or have kids and stuff like that, he has to allow them to have voice and allow his partner to have voice too. And, you know, I want him to have a good relationship and strive in that, and not think like I just have to be the dominant person in the household.
So by restructuring, you know, not only the way you think but even your behavior, now there's a new blueprint, right, that we're creating for our kids, so that, you know, the way they view relationships, the way they view manhood is different, and it isn't just about unidirectional way where it's my way or the highway type of thing, you know.
So that's the point of, you know, having these discussions, having these podcasts, is to give direction and give, you know, life, you know, style choices that, you know, that we have done and may other men have done. And we just want to, I ultimately just want to give guidance. You know, I feel I'm getting older, I'm getting a little more wiser, and I've been through a lot, so I want to teach other guys the avenue, because you know, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of guys that have gone through similar things that I have and not really been able to voice it or think that they can overcome these kind of type of situations. So just want to be a voice for others to hear. And
the struggle, and we'll finish with this if you don't mind, you know, like the struggle of men trying to please extended family, their parents and previous generations, by sticking to their own way, as opposed to changing your ways and doing what works for you and for your immediate family, which at that point in time may be your kids and your spouse, right? We hear that a lot, you know, like, oh, well, you know, like what are my parents gonna say? What's my dad gonna say if you know, if I change the way I am? And it's like, who cares what your dad says, right? Your dad is not in your house. Your dad is not taking care of your family. And the day you have problems with your spouse, the problems are going to be between both of you, not your extended family, right?
Yeah.
So that's valid. That's important, right? Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So we'll finish up this podcast. What do you think's the next topic? Where do we go from here? What would you like?
Yeah.
What do you think we should talk about next time around?
I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, I was thinking, and I don't know. Tell me what you think, but I was thinking about like getting more into also the father role. The fatherhood, and teaching our kids how to be more expressive and to allow emotion to show and so forth.
Emotional regulation.
Yeah, do you think that's a good topic or?
No, yeah, I think that's a very good topic because, a lot of times we're, as parents, I know when I was a younger parent, I didn't really allow my kid to express his emotions or even talk about emotions, I was raised in a household where, los hombres no lloran, men don't cry.
Right.
So.
And if you cry, I'm gonna give you something to cry for.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah.
And it's like, whoop, suck it up, right? And so, you go through life, right?
Yeah.
Like not wanting to show emotion because you may be considered a sign of weakness, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think that would be a good next topic to get into. So look forward to hearing from us more often, fellas. I appreciate everybody watching and supporting.
Yeah, stay tuned, and we'll see you guys during our next podcast.
All right. Thank you.
Be well. Perfect.